What's going on, folks? Don't Chef 17 coming at you live. So, tonight, what I'd like to talk about is about an hour ago, CNN posted a story um, saying that the Pentagon rejected a request for troops at the U.S. Mexico border as emergency law enforcement. Now, that's not to say that they rejected everything, because they didn't. They pretty much gave the go ahead for everything else. So, what I'd like to do is I'd actually like to read this article because it gives an all around look at what's really going on. Okay, so here we go. It says, when the Trump administration first asked the Pentagon to send troops to the southern border, they wanted them to perform emergency law enforcement functions, CNN has learned. The Pentagon said no. According to two defense, hey, no. According to two defense officials familiar with the request, the Department of Homeland Security asked that the Pentagon provide a reserve force that could be called upon to provide crowd and traffic control and safeguard customs and border protection personnel at the border to counter a group of Central American migrants walking to the U.S. border to request asylum. The Pentagon rejected the request on October 26th, according to one of the officials, even as it signed off on providing DHS with air and logistics support, medical personnel, and engineers. The request was turned down because the Department of Defense felt that active duty troops do not have the authority to conduct that type of mission unless they are granted additional authorities by the president. Defense officials have repeatedly emphasized the troops at the border are there to support civil authorities and that they are not expected to come into any contact with migrants. Despite multiple defense officials characterizing those activities as relating to law enforcement actions, a Department of Homeland Security official disagreed that such functions constituted law enforcement. Surprise, surprise. While the DHS has discussed the need for potential assistance with force protection of CBP personnel, calling this line of support law enforcement activities would be factually inaccurate, the DHS official said. Active duty U.S. troops are barred from domestic law enforcement unless there is an emergency. But Donald Trump, I hate giving it any power, has repeatedly raised the prospect of having troops enforce the border as he campaigns hard on the dangers of immigration in the final days before the midterm elections. At a White House speech on Thursday, Trump suggested that troops should fire on migrants if they throw rocks, saying that rocks should be considered rifles, and comparing the group of about 3,000 men, women, and children to an invasion. On Friday, Trump tried to walk back those comments, telling reporters that if our soldiers, or Border Patrol, or immigration and customs enforcement officers, are going to be hit in the face with rocks, we're going to arrest those people. That doesn't mean shoot them, but we're going to arrest those people quickly and for a long time. Going on, it says the defense officials described the force DHS requested as something that would only be used if CPB personnel were overwhelmed by the situation at the border. Even so, the Pentagon rejected the request for the reserve quote-unquote protection force, while it simultaneously approved all of DHS's other requests for support, with Secretary of Defense James Mattis's approval. It's not clear if Mattis weighed in on the decision to reject the request for troops to perform law enforcement functions. The first defense official said that in its response to DHS, the Defense Department said that if Homeland Security officials still want the reserve force of U.S. troops, they should ask the White House to formally grant the Pentagon the authorities to perform those additional functions. Customs and Border Protection declined to comment. However, Homeland Security Secretary Christian Nielsen, speaking to Fox News last week, said DHS had asked for air, engineering, logistics, and planning support, as well as vehicle barriers and quote-unquote ways in which we can protect my officers and agents, as well as the ports of entry themselves. The Posse Comitatus law forbids the U.S. military from enforcing domestic laws unless there's no other choice. Military analysts say Trump can easily use the National Guard, U.S. Marshals, or personnel from Immigration and Customs Enforcement to back up border officers if need be. Now, the costs of operation, that's another thing that needs to be looked at. More than 8,000 active duty troops could be deployed to the southwest border, more than Trump has serving in some of the world's most contentious combat zones. But they're there solely to support Homeland Security officials as they prepare for the migrants' arrival. Now, the troops will join over 2,000 National Guardsmen who are already at the border, meaning upwards of 10,000 American forces will be mobilized to stop Central American migrants that are still some hundreds of miles away from the border and weeks away from arriving in the U.S. Senior military officers have defended the deployment on national security grounds, but the mission, dubbed Operation Faithful Patriot, has been met with scathing criticism from many former military officials. Retired General Martin Dempsey, who served as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff from 2011 to 2015, tweeted Friday that our men and women in uniform are better trained, better equipped, and better led so they meet any threat with confidence. A wasteful deployment of overstretched soldiers and Marines would be made much worse if they use force disproportional to the threat they face. They won't. Now, the Pentagon has yet to determine the cost of the operation, nor has it identified the account where the funding would come from. But the Center for Strategic and Budgetary Assessments estimates that the cost of placing active duty troops on the border could range from $42 million to $110 million. CSBA says that on the high end, the deployment could cost $143 per troop per day for operating and maintenance costs and $112 per troop per day on the low end. CSBA also estimates that the use of military aircraft in this deployment would cost about $136,645 per day. With the mission currently set for November 5th through December 15th for a total of 41 days, the cost of deploying 8,000 troops and air support ranges from approximately $42 million to $55 million. according to the CSBA estimate. Trump has said that the total number of troops could climb as high as 15,000, which CSBA calculates the price tag to be at approximately $90 million to $110 million for 41 days. On Thursday, Trump claimed the military is putting up thousands of tents to hold migrants, but officials said there are no plans as of now to build tents. The officials said that while there had been informal talks between the Department of Defense and Department of Homeland Security about having the military build tent facilities to house detained migrants, tents were never part of the formal request for assistance submitted by DHS and approved by Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis. One official says that DHS was informally discouraged from making the request by the Defense Department. So, again, Trump is lying, saying that things are happening that aren't. Again, he's spending money that he has no business spending. He's fucking up my country. That's what he's doing. All the rhetoric and lies and propaganda and bullshit. It's destroying the country. All the anti-Semitism, hate, all the racial tension that's going on. It all seems a bit insurmountable, but it's not. It's really not insurmountable. There's a very easy way to get over the issue. And that is get him the fuck out of office. But in order to do that, we need you to vote Democrat at the polls. Do research on the judges. It's another important part. Don't just put yes for everybody that doesn't have an opponent. Look at go to ballotpedia.com. Look up all the people. You will find an immense amount of information, and I think it will truly help you make an informed decision on who to vote for and who not to vote for, who to vote yes and who to vote no. Do your research into the propositions that are on the ballot and the measures that are on the ballot. Do your research. Don't get caught up. Don't get caught up in the rhetoric that is being thrown at us from every direction possible. It's we can do it. We can. I know we can. Just have to come together as one. And as long as we do that, then we should be all right. Now, what do you say we finish this broadcast with a few dabs? And what I have here is Peaches and Dream mixed with Jet Fuel OG. And it's very nice. Got a lot of potency to it, too. All right. There we go. All right. Well, listen, I want to thank you all for joining me. Again, please Get out and vote. If you don't get out and vote, you can't bitch about what happens after the election. So please do your part, and let's get the right people into office so we can get the wrong people out of office. Thanks again. Stone Chef 710. Wishing y'all peace.